Welcome to TAMAPTA. I'm your host, Marjorie Bates. On today's program, we'll visit with 8 students who took a moose hide tanning course out at Lucy Adams Camp. Our story takes place near the town of Inuvik, located in the Beaufort Delta region. Inuvik is a vibrant community of 3,400, with a bright future of strong ties to its past. While many residents of Inuvik are excited to look forward, they still honor and practice the traditions of times past. Many still carry on the skills that have been passed down from generation to generation that were once an essential element for the survival in the Delta. Hunting has always been an important part of everyday life in the Delta, and all the parts of an animal are used for specific purposes. Not only is the meat consumed, but the hide and the other parts of the animal are also used in a wide variety of ways. Animals like the moose have long stood as an important key to the survival of the people of the Delta. Primarily hunters and fishermen, the Inuvialuit followed the migration of the herd until their way of life was changed, and they began to live in settled communities. Although hunting does not hold its place as it once did, the connection to the land and animals that still live on remains strong. While the waves of the days past are not prevalent as they once were, this summer in the Delta finds people from the area looking forward to spending the days and nights at small cabins and tracts of the land along the Mackenzie River, looking to recapture a bit of what has been lost. Our crew spent a couple of days at the camp of Lucy Adams, located about 4 miles from Inuvik on the east arm of the Mackenzie River, where a tanning workshop was taking place. Eight Inuvik residents, both men and women, took the time to learn an old skill that is still high in demand even in today's high-tech world. The workshop was organized to teach students the process of brain tanning a hide, a skill that has long been in practice, but those who know how to brain tan a moose hide are becoming few and far between.
No, I'm trying, but not as good as you.
Skins have long been used by those who have hunted to survive in a number of different ways. While many are familiar with the use of hides in clothing, tan hides have also been used to make harnesses and whips for dog sleds, laces for snowshoes, and covers for toboggans. Wearing hide was common as wearing jeans at one time, with such a historical figure as George Washington wearing skins and ordering skins for his troops. The origin of brain tanning is not easy to trace, but an old Iroquois tale said a stiff deerskin was one day walking around from house to house through an Indian village, frightening everyone it visited. The deerskin stopped at a house of a man who was boiling deer brains. Because the man was not afraid of the skin, he threw a hot water solution on the deerskin, which took away its power of motion. The skin was softened and flattened to the floor. Once the skin was softened, the people began to pull it, and the tanned deer skins were created. Skins have been used because they have been widely available, durable, and soft. They were the basic fabric of prehistoric times. Buffalo, moose, deer, elk, and antelope, caribou, and even a bighorn sheep have had their skins tanned for everyday use. Brain-tanned skins were the clothing of the American Indian when the first Europeans arrived in North America, and the seemingly endless supply of skins reignited the trade of skins in Europe. Skins quickly became the fabric of choice for the elite of the European society. By the 1750s, the style among wealthy Europeans was to wear yellow skins, particularly for hunting and riding. Between 1775 and 1773, U.S. Customs records show that 2,006,152 pounds of deerskin were shipped to England from Georgia. And when the American colonies decided it was time to gain their independence from the British, they dressed their armies in skins prepared and sewn in the States. In their view, their skins were practical, available, and patriotic. Most importantly, they weren't supporting the British trade by wearing skins. Tanning a moose hide is a long process, but if you have the time and the right tools, the work is simple. To properly complete the tanning process, you need to set aside a few days. In different cultures, the tanning process is done in a wide variety of items. In Eastern Russia, liver, urine, and smoke have been used. In Asia, fermented milk, butter, and egg yolk. In North America, brains, smoke, liver, sweet corn, eggs, pine nuts, yucca root, and many other things have been used. Regardless of what was used, the end result was strong, durable material, which could be used for many items. We hope you enjoyed the first half of this moose hide tanning course. As you watch, this skill is a fading tradition. But these dedicated students will help keep that tradition alive. And also pass it down to their children. Welcome back as we watch these people learn how to clean and prepare the skin for the final stages. The first step of skinning. The hide is cut away from the moose using a sharp knife. It's best to work with a moose hide that has been frozen or stored properly until the time comes for skinning. Skinning an animal properly for its hide is pretty simple if you follow the lines of the animal's body. Because the skin and muscles are separated by protective membranes, the removal of the skin from the muscle is easy. Once the first cut has been made, the skin is removed from the animal as if you were removing its coat. By peeling the skin off, it is easily separated from the membranes and makes for a cleaner skin when you are finished. There should be no knives used to skin the animal, only to make the first cuts. A knife will cut into the meat, making the skin removal much more difficult and not as clean. There is also a chance that small cuts will be made in the skin, which will open up and get bigger during the tanning process. Once the moose has been skinned, the next step is the removal of the moose hair from the skin. This is also done with a very sharp knife. The next step is the fleshing. Fleshing involves removing any meat or fat still attached to the skin, also done with a sharp knife. A skin that is thin will tan better and will be more suitable to work with in the next few stages.
You're moving to Mom's?
Once the fleshing is finished, the skin can be left to soak overnight. The next day, all the hair is removed from the hide.
You just have to really try not to cut into the hide.
Yeah.
Like when they're skinning. It's direct.
Oh yeah.
When they cut, you can't do anything with it once it's cut like that.
Welcome back to TAMAPTA. Moose hide tanning is a skill that cannot be taught overnight, but takes a great deal of time and patience.
Kanawtip sa amin kasi tap ko ng ilisa kayak si Mayuanut yung value on ng big. Tayo unangin na ilin na ito kisanik lo tayo bataman ilin sang naktok si bituyo amik.
As we watch these teachers and students show us how to prepare and preserve a hide.
Sulit tayo na magko ilisa di takun na aptik ilisak tualo tayo sanay ayo ta magkuninga ang value on ng big.
In every step of the preparation of the hide for brain tanning, the most important tool anyone can have is a sharp knife. Each step requires its own particular knife, and never is the same knife used for skinning, scraping, and fleshing.
Like you can't just grab any kind of kitchen knife and start fleshing it when you're cutting anything. So you need a knife that's sharpened just for fleshing. And then when you're scraping this near side too, you need it filed another different way again.
A great deal of time was spent sharpening and resharpening the knives, because without a sharp knife, the task of preparing the skin for brain tanning is considerably more difficult. There is no particular knife used, and the students use both conventional knives and ulus during this workshop. The secret of brain tanning comes from the preparation of the brain, used to soften the moose hide. In general, there is just enough brains in the skull of the animal to complete the tanning.
Okay, I'm on to this other horn. What?
The skin covering the area between the eyes and the back of the antlers is the first cutaway. A V-shaped cut is made into the skull, usually with a hacksaw. The cut bone is removed from the skull. The brains can then be removed and placed in a bag, ready for the use in tanning. The brain is placed in a sack and hung out to dry. Only when the brain has begun to rot, it is ready. The brain is an added mixture of water and face soap and mixed together until it takes on a soup-like appearance. The mixture is heated and then is ready for the skins. The hide is usually left in the water and soap mixture overnight, so as not to dry out. The next day, the tasks of rinsing the hide and wringing out the excess liquid begins. The students take the time to make their own tools for the wringing process, cutting the wood and removing the bark. Once the bark has been removed, the end of one piece of wood is sharpened. The wood is then placed into the hide carefully, and the hide is twisted and pulled tightly to ensure that all excess liquid is removed in order for the skin to dry properly. The hide is attached to a piece of wood in the shape of a Y, which allows the hide to be pulled as tightly as possible and then left between the branches to ensure the wringing remains tight. The rinsing and the wringing process is done a number of times and left to dry until it is ready for the next phase, the smoking. The students cut the wood and build a temporary structure that sat over the fire to smoke the moose hide. Smoking the hide is generally done over an open fire, and it's process of smoking the hide that results the changing of the color of the hide from white to tan to even darker if preferred. The structure was covered with a tarp in order to keep the smoke on the hide as much as possible. This process can also be done by a smokehouse. Which is a small shed that can be used to smoke other things like meat or even fish. The skin is then scraped once more and smoked again. Now the hide is stretched out to continuing the drying process. Once the moose hide is dry, it is ready to be used for clothing, for moccasins, and for a wide variety of other uses.
For hundreds of years, people from all around the world have worn clothing made from animal skins. It is these same people who have learned the skills to take these skins from a mere hide to a material that is both durable and fashionable. The process of brain tanning a hide is a long practiced skill that not only takes a great deal of time to perfect, but time to prepare the tools and time to learn the process itself by learning how to brain tan a moose hide. Eight students from Inuvik can now work to carry on and continue to preserve a traditional skill that is in danger of being lost forever. Each will take what they have learned with them and hopefully pass these newly discovered skills on in their own way and time. In a world where our reliance on computers and other forms of technology has become a necessity, we are constantly in search of a way back to a simpler time, and one which is a risk of disappearing for good. In working to preserve the process of brain tanning, our people are working to preserve and protect the ways of the past so they might continue to survive and flourish in the new millennium. For TAMAPTA, I'm your host, Marjorie Bates,
Kung TAMAPTA mon, Ronald Kaptana.
and we'll see you next week.
Ilan ito.